This past week, I was out in Scottsdale, Arizona. The desert stretched out in front of me, brown and bare. The McDowell Mountains rising like bones against the sky. Camelback Mountain hunched in silhouette. A fragile, spare ecosystem built to survive by making the most of so little. But laid across that desert was mile after mile of human sprawl, business parks and housing developments, car dealerships, shopping centers, and at night it lit up so you could not see the stars. Each one and all of it drawing voraciously from the water table, squeezing the land for all it could give. And I'll tell you the truth, I got sad about it, like in my soul. Because it seemed like it wasn't just the desert and what had been done that I was looking at. It was like I was looking in a mirror. I was looking at us. I was looking at me, and I was maybe looking at this whole country in 2025. It's like we've become a Christmas tree in December, shimmering with lights, dripping with tinsel, piled high with ornaments and cheer. And from the outside, through the window, it looks good, fun, and maybe a little too much in the way that we like a little too much. But you and I know the truth. The tree is already cut, severed from its roots, balanced in a shallow metal dish of stale water, glittering on the outside and dying at the root. And I think of this as the condition of primal estrangement. So there stands a question: what happens to a life that looks dazzling but is cut off from the source? When we sparkle on the surface, but we starve at the roots. When we are busy in public but broken in private. When we're dazzling through December but dead by January. Isn't that what estrangement feels like? As estranged from the earth we abuse, estranged from one another, estranged even from ourselves, our own souls, that this morning many of us are aching for rest. And estranged from the source of life, that living water that throughout evolution has never run dry. And I want to say this with compassion. Maybe we had some good reasons for getting here. Sometimes cutting off a relationship in any direction is good for self-protection because closeness only means harm. Sometimes overconsumption seems normal. It's the what everybody did. It's the way to keep up. It's the way to get ahead. It's the way to belong. Sometimes numbing ourselves with busyness may have felt like the only way to quiet that ache deep inside. And still, it comes at a terrible cost. A cost to the land we inhabit, drained and parched. A cost to the people around us, forgotten, discarded. A cost to our own souls, cut off from nourishment, propped up but not rooted. And what happens when we're propped up but not planted? When our beauty is cut off from our being? What's the point of glitter when we're gasping for water? When we're shimmering at the surface but severed at the source? I am hearing this fall many people say that there are now things that have been broken in this world, in this country, in our communities, that will never be healed, that there is no way back. I'm hearing that. I don't know if you're hearing that. I don't even know if that's something you've been thinking in quiet moments to yourself. Could there be a way back then from how far, as a people, we have gotten lost? And what does Unitarian Universalism have to say about a path forward from here? One option, of course, is to discard the whole question and simply numb out, to shrink the circle of our care so we don't get overwhelmed. It makes a certain sense. We close our eyes, scroll on our phone, tend to our little patch of the earth. We say things like, well, that's above my pay grade, not my business, as we turn away, holding that grief from welling up. And I get it. I mean, sometimes in the face of all that seems broken, in the face of the headlines, distraction can be a form of survival. And then there's others of us, or perhaps the same ones of us on other moments, who swing to the opposite extreme. We hurl ourselves into overdrive, trying to wrestle life, our own and everybody else's, into shape. I grew up going to the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, where activists passed around clipboards with petitions on Sundays during worship, tirelessly not letting a moment pass without being down for the cause, always in motion, like a restless ghost in a ghost story trying to get home. Like that, we can let guilt be our GPS, organizing our days around penance, measuring our worth by whether we've worked hard enough, shown up at enough events, written enough postcards, done enough, fixing enough, as if the pain of guilt in our lives could be outrun by activity, as if any of us needed to earn or to prove our worth, when the fact is, we're just fine and even kind of beautiful. I want to ask you to just tell yourself that. I'm just fine and even kind of beautiful. But we act like there's something broken within us rather than that something's gotten kind of out of alignment and broken between us and life's ongoing interdependence. So hounded by guilt, we end up exhausted at the end of the day. So distraction won't nourish us and desperation won't sustain us. One starves the soul, the other crushes the spirit, and neither can guide us now for the long haul. So if not numbing ourselves with detachment, not burning ourselves out with guilt, what then is the path? As you heard today in Laura Beth's story, after the people had broken their promise to be faithful to their highest commitments out there in the wilderness and had instead pledged their hearts to the glittering golden calf, something amazing happens. Even when they have given up on love, it turns out that love has not given up on them. Even when they have given up on the depths of life, life itself has not given up on them. Moses comes down from the mountain with a second tablet, a second chance. Has anybody in this room ever gotten a second chance? Anybody in this room ever gotten a third chance and a fourth? Moses comes down like that with a new covenant, a renewed promise. Picture it, picture the scene. Because the way I see it, it's like a long-time married couple renewing their vows. You know what you're getting into. And you're thinking about it. You're like doing the math. And it's all the more precious because you step up and say yes, despite all. Maybe you've had that experience in your life of renewing your promises, starting over again. The theologian Walter Brueggemann put it succinctly. He said, "We are promise-making, promise-breaking, and promise-remaking people." I love that. Doesn't sound like a standard of perfection. It just sounds like a standard to keep going. When relationships are broken, when estrangement from life has us living our days like a cut Christmas tree, Unitarian Universalism has a method for transforming that pain. I feel like I'm on a commercial now. How much would you pay In our tradition, in Unitarian Universalism, we know things break down, not within us because we're beautiful, but between us. When things break down between us, we got a way to respond, and that is covenant. Covenant runs deep in our Unitarian Universalist story and identity. In the 16th century, stay with me, in the 16th century, when all across Europe there came the cry of sola scriptura and sola fide, scripture alone, faith alone, it seemed liberating. No more would people know the divine or know the depths of life only through the mechanisms of some institution, only through certain rites, but now they were free to experience life directly themselves. So liberating until it wasn't, until some folks started to walk back all that freedom and the new cages of creed appeared. But the radical Reformation, that's us, the branch we belong to, said, no, faith can't be caged. Truth can't be tamed. We are free people, and what binds us isn't creed, but covenant, by which I mean holy promises to each other, to the earth, to ourselves, and to life. Stanley Hauerwas says that in an age of individualism and isolation, covenant is countercultural. Covenant insists you are not your own, but belong to each other. The question then becomes not who are we, but instead whose are we? James Cone reminds us that the estrangement of our times is not abstract, it's not just sort of an idea for discussion, but it is instead the rotten fruit of white supremacy. It is the system that severs black and brown bodies from opportunity, protection, and dignity. And the only medicine for that suffering, is coming together again, solidarity. Covenant means standing with the crucified classes, standing with those the world pushes aside. Covenant means forging at each moment a wider and more durable us. And this is why guilt is a terrible GPS. It keeps us turned in on ourselves, worrying and nagging and gnawing at ourselves, obsessed with ourselves, measuring how we measure up. But covenant points us outwards. Covenant plants us once again in the soil of life. Covenant turns despair into joy and says, begin again in love. Yes, there is sorrow in this path of facing the pain and resolving not to give up. Yes, there is pain in seeing how far we have wandered, to walk through brown fields poisoned by neglect, to watch the news and see glittering weapons and starving children, Palestinian families in Gaza mourning their dead, Israeli families still aching for hostages from October 7th. Covenant says all of this suffering is worthy of lament. We are all family here on this earth. Covenant says refuse to look away. Covenant says join your hearts and your lives in solidarity with all of those Israeli activists protesting Netanyahu's regime. Join your hearts and your lives with Palestinian activists risking their lives for their people. And we do this, we join our hearts and our lives in this way, not because we are partisan, but because we are human. And here is the gospel truth. We don't keep covenant because we are shiny and perfect. We keep covenant, our promises, because we are not. We don't return to love because we have failed. We return to love because love has not failed us. And the invitation is the same every time. Look at your promises. When you're down in the ditch, when you see you've gotten lost, when there is that old pain again, look at your promises and see how they are. And then little by little, begin again in love. So what could it look like for you or for us to live in this way, to start from right where we are and to begin again in love? We don't have to go far to see it. Only 6 miles from here is the historic 4th Ward Park. If you walk there today, you'll see green lawns, children splashing in fountains, neighbors picnicking, families walking dogs, life where once there was only ruin. The land before was abandoned, was brownfield, overbuilt, polluted, and abandoned. The warehouses of industry had leached poison into the soil. The land was unsafe, unusable, and estranged from life. But the community said, "This story isn't over." They faced the truth of the contamination, undertook painstaking work of remediation, and now that brown field has become a garden. The poisoned ground has become a place of joy, of connection, and renewal. And somebody told me between these services that actually this is the restoration to what prior generations knew the place as. Isn't that what covenant can do in a life? Or in a community? Isn't that what it means over time to begin again in love? Because let's be honest, some of us have made of our lives a brownfield, overbuilt with busyness, polluted with anxiety, contaminated with self-neglect, severed from the waters of love, glittering on the outside and estranged on the inside. But here's some good news. Today, this day, anyone can turn it around. You can turn it around. Today is the day we can stop death dealing to ourselves and to others. Today is the day we can begin again in love. And maybe this is true of the whole congregation. For all the joy and the flourishing here, maybe the mountaintop is still up ahead. Maybe the greatest flourishing is still yet to come, because the real scaffolding of this place is not steel or stone. The real scaffolding of this place is the promises we keep. It is covenant, and covenant can always be renewed and strengthened and deepened. So maybe today death hasn't won. Maybe despair hasn't won. And maybe, despite the headlines, hate hasn't won. Maybe love still has something to say. Maybe the pain in your life and the pain in this world can be addressed by taking a good hard look at the promises you've made and the promises you've kept to each other, to ourselves, and to life. And maybe, if Walter Brueggemann is right, that we are a promise-making, promise-breaking, and promise-remaking people, then maybe this setback is only a setup for a comeback. And what will that comeback look like? A life that's not just dazzling, but rooted. A congregation not just surviving, but even thriving. A brownfield turned into a garden. A desert blooming with wildflowers after the rain. A people who are unstoppable. Imagine what it would be like to be unstoppable in the face of despair, because you know and have practiced what it is to begin again in love, and to begin again in love, and to begin again in love, and to begin again in love. So here we are, community, in this moment together. We are a people who know what it is to shimmer like a Christmas tree, dazzling but cut off. We're a people who know what it is to be poisoned like the brownfield, overbuilt and contaminated. We're a people who know what it is to be estranged from life, but we are also a people of covenant, a people of promises. And covenant means the story isn't over. Broken promises can be remade. Estrangement can be healed. Brownfields restored. Deserts can bloom, because love isn't finished. Even now, it's doing a new thing. We don't want to be clanging cymbals in this lifetime that we're given. We don't want to be glittering trees. We don't want to be brownfields of regret. No, instead, we want to be rooted in love, not the feeling, but the commitment. Because without love, we are nothing. With love, though, with love, everything is possible. So let us be a people of covenant, not shimmering for a season, but planted deep in the soil of life. Whatever your story, whatever you've done, whoever you've been, whatever you're up against this morning in your life, here together, let us be a people who believe that setbacks are only setups for a comeback. And let us be a people who believe that love still has something to say. Let us be a people who give our lives to the faith that the desert will bloom